When thousands of workers go on strike, it's pretty hard to miss, right? The disruption is front and center. But what if there's more to it? What if a single strike is about way more than just one contract? So today, we're going to dig into what the sources say about this, about how one union's fight can actually create a ripple effect that ends up shaping the workplace for everyone. And really, at the heart of all this is one simple idea: community. This quote from Erlinda Bellio, a care aide with 31 years of experience, wow, it just perfectly sets the stage. It's not just about one person's paycheck. It's about having people who have your back. That idea of being family, that's the key to understanding everything we're about to talk about. All right, so let's get into the specifics of what happened. On September 2nd, 2025, the BC General Employees Union, or BCGEU, officially went on strike. And get this, it wasn't even a close call. The vote to strike was a massive 92.7%. I mean, that's a huge deal. We're talking about the contracts for over 73,000 people across 6 different parts of the public service. And we're not just talking about one type of job here. The folks on those picket lines, they're the people who are really the backbone of our communities. We're talking correctional officers, social workers looking out for vulnerable kids, the admin staff who keep government offices actually running, and even the staff in provincial retail stores. These are literally our neighbors. And this right here, this quote from Mehdi Salam, a correctional officer with 28 years on the job, it just nails it. See, the sources are framing this as way more than just a fight over a contract. It's about solidarity. It's a collective push for better conditions that, they argue, will end up helping everybody. Okay, so let's pull up a seat at the bargaining table and see what's really driving all this. At its core, it boils down to a problem that, let's be honest, a lot of us are feeling right now. That huge, growing gap between what we earn and what it actually costs to live. So what are they actually asking for? Well, first up, the big one, wages that actually keep up with inflation and the cost of living. They're also pushing to update how jobs are valued, because a lot of these job descriptions are literally decades old. And on top of that, they're looking for better benefits, fair rules for working from home, and they want to tackle this growing problem of having too many managers and not enough people on the front lines. And if you want a number that just lays bare how intense this affordability crisis is for these workers, here it is, a whopping 70%. That's 7 out of every 10 of these employees spending more than the recommended 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Just wow. And what happens when you're under that much financial pressure? Well, 1 in 5 of them has to work a second job. Just think about that for a second. These are people with full-time careers in public service, and they still can't make ends meet. It's just a crystal clear sign that wages have not been keeping up. But it's not just about the paychecks. The source materials also highlight this kind of weird structural issue. The number of managers has been ballooning. We're now at a ratio of 1 manager for every 3 employees. And what that means, in practical terms, is you have fewer people doing the actual frontline work that we all rely on. That leads to burnout for them, and it can really impact the services we all receive. Okay, so we've got the what and the why of the strike. We get the demands, but now we get to the really fascinating part, the core argument presented in the sources, this idea that it's not a zero-sum game. The argument they're making is that a win for these workers is actually a win for the whole community. So how does that work? Let's break it down. Okay, so the whole idea is that better pay for these public workers creates this positive ripple effect. First off, that extra money doesn't just vanish, it gets spent right here, in local communities, on groceries, at small businesses, you name it. Second, it eases the burden on social supports. I mean, the sources point out that some government workers are actually having to use food banks right now. Fair wages would change that. Third, you get stronger essential services because competitive pay attracts and keeps the best people. Fourth, strong public contracts tend to lift wages for everybody because private companies have to compete. And finally, it just builds a stronger, more resilient community because more households are financially stable. So what this does is it completely reframes the whole conversation. A pay raise stops being a cost and starts looking a lot more like an investment in our local businesses, in our essential services, and really in the overall economic health of our own communities. All right, let's zoom the camera out even wider for a minute, because according to the sources, this whole ripple effect thing, it's not a new idea at all. In fact, they make the case that the labor movement is responsible for so many of the workplace standards that pretty much all of us, union or not, just take for granted today. I mean, just think about it for a second. Things we consider totally normal now, workplace safety rules, a minimum wage, paid vacation, even parental leave. According to the source material, these things didn't just appear out of thin air. They were all hard fought battles, often on a picket line, led by unions. And eventually, they became standard rights for almost everybody.
And it doesn't stop with pay and days off either. The sources also credit unions with being a major force in fighting for rules against discrimination and harassment at work. They've been the ones consistently pushing governments to bring in stronger human rights laws that protect every single worker, whether you have a union card or not.
Okay, so we have this strike happening now, this idea of a ripple effect, and all this history. How does it all connect? Well, it all points to one really simple but powerful idea. And here it is, a phrase pulled right from a BCGEU bargaining document. A rising tide raises all boats. That, right there, is the core philosophy. The whole idea is that when you improve things for one group of workers, you're not taking from everyone else. Instead, you're creating this upward pressure that actually helps lift the standards for the entire workforce. So, at the end of the day, the main takeaway from all this source material is pretty clear. The impact of collective bargaining goes way, way beyond just the union members. By pushing the bar higher on things like wages, safety, and fairness, these actions help build a better and more equitable economy for everyone. Which leaves us with a really big question to think about. If collective action has been such a huge driver of progress in the past, as the sources argue it has, then what could that mean for the future of work? As we stare down these huge challenges, automation, the gig economy, the affordability crisis, it really makes you wonder, what role will collective action play in shaping the workplace for the next generation, for all of us?